Hey everyone, welcome to Locked On Lakers for Wednesday. Brian Kamenetsky, Andy Kamenetsky. A new name has entered the chat when it comes to Lakers head coach. I'll tell you about it next.
You are Locked On Lakers, your daily Los Angeles Lakers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Lakers your first listen of every day, Monday through Friday, no matter how or where you get your podcasts. This one's always free. It is never behind a paywall. And Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where over 24,000 subscribers are all hanging out, looking at the new names, Andy, and the long list of qualities and qualifications that the next Lakers coach must have, according to reports from this week, both at ESPN and The Athletic. We will unpack all of it, Andy, and there's so much to unpack. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time, the Game Time app. You download it, you create an account, and use the code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So the big news, I guess, on Tuesday, Andy, was a report from Shams Charania and Jovan Buha at The Athletic detailing the three leading candidates for the currently, and we're at the very beginning, but these are the ones that are starting off with a bit of a jump, it seems like.
I do think it is important to clarify this a bit. Like, these three people we're about to name could be the leading contenders. They are also, though, three guys who are currently not coaching anybody at all. I do think that is affecting the rankings to some degree. So as much as it's awesome for our traffic if everybody freaks out, the responsible thing to do is let everybody know these guys are in the mix. But other than maybe one of them, I think it's premature to label anybody a front runner. Like a true front.
I disagree that I think it's premature. I agree with you to label an individual a true front runner, but I do think it's fair to say when it's being reported that there's a group of three people who are, quote, the initial leading targets, that those are the three people who are currently running ahead of the game.
In the same reports, it's also mentioned about the other guys who are in the mix and also are still coaching. I just think that is worth pointing out. It is much easier to interview any of the three people that we are about to name because unless one of them has podcasting conflicts, they're all free right now.
We'll get into some of this stuff because again, I don't know if I entirely agree with you, but anyway, the leading names today, according to The Athletic, Shams and Jovan, are JJ Redick, James Borrego, replacing Kenny Atkinson in the spot designated for people who have been head coaches before, former coach in Orlando and Charlotte. And the new name, Andy, Sam Cassell. He long respected player, long respected assistant coach, very well-known meme as well, thanks to
a man of huge testicles, Brian. Let's just say it.
The big balls dance, the original meme, really, I think, going back to the beginning. Let's start with Cassell, because that, to me, that's the new one. We've talked a little bit about Borrego. We've certainly talked about JJ Redick. I mean, he's a name that you periodically hear, but he's been an assistant now for so long that, I was, it's a bit of a surprise to see him kind of jump right up here to the front of the line, so to speak.
I actually don't find it surprising, and the reason is if the Lakers are going to do what I think is the smart thing and cast a wide net, there's no reason that somebody like Sam Cassell wouldn't emerge. But also, too, he is somebody that I think can potentially check a lot of different boxes in terms of, we've discussed this before, there's no obvious candidate out there, unless Ty Lue shook free. There is no obvious candidate out there that, like, okay, he's the one that immediately makes the most sense for the most just glaring reasons. But in Cassell, you're talking about somebody who's put in a lot of time as an assistant coach. He is somebody that has always been respected by peers when he was playing, and at his height, he reached all NBA level. He won 3 championships while he was a player. He's always been thought of as a really smart basketball mind. He's very charismatic, were I to guess, and we'll start doing some asking around as well. Sam Cassell can command a room. That was certainly you and I were around the Clippers some when he was a member of that 2006, 2007 crew with Elton Brand and Corey Maggette and those. Sam Cassell absolutely commands a room. That's the way Paul Pierce has talked about him, with Kevin Garnett has talked about him. He is somebody that I do think checks a fair amount of boxes if you're just looking for different things. And I can't promise that he will vibe with LeBron and or AD, but I can promise he won't be intimidated by him.
Oh yeah, sure. And look, I didn't mean surprising in the sense that I think it's a bad idea. I mean surprising in the sense that his name wasn't there before, and it was, and that was just seeing it as reported, not as another name that they might be interested in, but a name that they are very interested in, and potentially, as one of in this group of leading targets. I love the idea of them. I guess aside from concerns that you would call him, a product from a coaching standpoint, I guess of the Doc tree. He spent most of his assistant time as an assistant with Doc, which probably makes some people nervous. I don't have a problem with this from the idea of bringing in and interviewing Cassell. I agree with you. I think he actually checks a lot of boxes. He's 54 years old, so he's young enough that he can grow with the team. He's not somebody you would look at as a 2 or 3 or 4 year hire because he's too old. He's, yes, he would be a first-time head coach, but he's also got a tremendous amount of experience. He's as experienced as an assistant coach can possibly be. I think it's interesting too that James Borrego has sort of replaced, seems at least in this, Atkinson is named in a couple different reports, and I think Dave mentions him on ESPN, and it pops up, I think, in The Athletic as well, as a potential candidate still, but that Borrego seems to have unseated Atkinson as the most talked about candidate among former head coaches. Indicates a little bit of a shift in thinking. Neither one of those guys have extensive experience as head coaches. It's not, Atkinson is older, but it's not like he's got 15 years as a head coach and Borrego has whatever it is, 3.5. So they're relatively comparable in that way. And the Lakers clearly looking younger, at least in that sense.
Yeah. And also too, I think an interesting comp between Atkinson and Borrego is they both were head coaches under very unusual circumstances and then a kind of unusual exits. Like Kenny Atkinson was originally brought in to help develop those Nets teams with D'Angelo Russell and Spencer Dinwiddie that looked like they were actually moving in the right direction. They made a surprise, playoff mini run. Then the Nets went in a drastically different direction, bringing in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. And those guys, by all accounts, just decided we don't want Atkinson. I mean, like Atkinson didn't even coach Durant. He was out the entire year. Mm-hmm. And, that they were reportedly a very big driving force in bringing in Steve Nash, which turned out to be an absolute disaster. I mean, at least in terms of the overall result and the overall ending. And then in the case of Borrego, it seemed like those teams were also kind of moving in a different direction, but it's been well documented. The Hornets are a bit of a bleep show. And
it is. There was something similar there too, in the sense that Borrego, by some reports at least, lost the locker room over there. Yeah. Like, those guys tuned him out. The flip side to that is who was in that locker room that he lost? Like,
who's kept the locker room in Charlotte for like a decade?
It's like the whole, like, it's different. So you say you lose the locker room with the Hornets, it's a different deal than losing, the Warriors or something like that, where you take those guys, have a lot more credibility. They've got earned credibility in ways that no member of the Hornets possibly could. I don't care when you're on that team. So that is the reporting. But the other part of this, Andy, that is delightful at least to me, and I'm pretty sure to you too, is the reporting from Shams and Jovan on the qualities that the Lakers are looking for in their next head coach. It's a long list, and we'll get into it next.
Locked On Lakers is sponsored by BetterHelp, and sometimes we all need the opportunity to get things off our chest, big or small. Things can start just getting to you, eating at you, and it's really important that you let this stuff out and find somebody unbiased in your life to do that with. And look, you find different escapes. We hope that Locked On Lakers is a nice escape from real life for our listeners, for our viewers. I love the Lakers, passionate about it. You love the Lakers, passionate about it. But I don't care how much purple and gold you bleed. Everybody has more pressing issues in their life than the Lakers in their real lives. And it's important, again, that those big problems, you can get them off your chest and find someone to speak with. I can speak to how much therapy helped me and my family during a really difficult period for us. Therapy can be different for everyone. And if you are thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, suited to your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
All right, so it began, Andy, on Monday, actually, I believe it was, with a report from David Meneman, ESPN, that made the rounds. The Lakers were looking for, quote, a grinder for the next head coaching job, somebody who eats and sleeps and drinks the game of basketball.
Either that or like Magic Mike doing the pony dance to Genuine, one or the other.
That's true. We didn't rule that out.
Yeah.
But further reporting does indicate that the Lakers are in fact looking for a hard worker, because in that
honestly, given the issues that they've had landing on a coach, that's far too outside a box of equality for them to be demanding. Like, stick to the stuff that you know works. Let's go back to our bread and butter, gentlemen.
All right. So this from the report today from or Tuesday, I should say, from Shams and Jovan. Los Angeles is looking for I really cannot reiterate how much I love what we're about to read. Los Angeles is looking for a coach who can grow with the franchise for years to come, according to team and league sources, placing a premium on maximizing Davis's greatness, the current returning players, and an element of high-level player development. It continues. The Lakers are seeking a coach who will command the locker room and hold players accountable, as well as tirelessly game plan and provide a level of structure to the organization, according to these sources. So essentially, there is one element of this which we'll get to that actually is worth talking about. But essentially what this list says is the Lakers want a coach who is good at all the stuff that coaches are good at and works hard.
Well, really what they're saying is they need a coach who does everything.
Yes.
And is good at every single quality that you can possibly name. Like, it's borderline a Match.com entry. Like, there's so many different qualities in there that they're looking for. And it also makes it, as we discussed either for Tuesday's show or Monday's show, it also makes it very funny that with all of those different qualities that they were looking for, all of which require some degree of proof of concept, by multiple reports, the leading clubhouse leader is JJ Redick, who has proven literally no ability to do any of this.
Look,
which
Andy,
doesn't mean he can't. Want to make it clear. Doesn't mean he can't. I'm just saying, if there is again, like a CVS receipt list that just unscrolls of all these different things that are mandatory for this coach, or the pie in the sky version, the front runner is the guy that has literally never coached.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Does James Borrego love long walks on the beach? Does Sam Cassell want a partner who is not only the love of his life, but also his best friend? Probably.
Does he make you feel safe in his arms?
Right. I mean, it's just like, this is so Rob Pelinka, or somebody who speaks Pelinka, because we want a grinder. We want a source who who will work tirelessly in their game planning, as opposed to like this all 82 games you want me to be at, or like, shoot around's a little too early in the morning for me. It impedes on my nap time. Like,
I mean, is this like a passive aggressive way of saying that Darvin didn't study film or something?
I don't know what it's just. I think it's the standard Lakers posturing that we're looking for someone, who reminds us of, Kobe's work ethic. It's like this sort of thing, like the spirit of, what makes like, yeah, you want a guy who is going to be, tirelessly game planning. You want somebody who can be with the organization for a long time. You want somebody who can develop players. Like,
they're all very self-evident things you'd be looking for from your coach.
Yes, they are.
They kind of don't require saying at all.
They shouldn't. I mean, no, they shouldn't at all. Like,
I could have been the unnamed source on that.
What do you think, Andy? What do you think they'd be looking for in the next head coach? Somebody who works hard. Check, you nailed it. This sort of thing is so stupid to me. And
what were they looking for before?
There is one piece of this, though, in this ridiculous list that has been put out that, again, started yesterday, or on Monday, I should say, with the report that the Lakers are looking for a grinder. We knew we were off to a bad start this week when that came out.
Yeah. He has to do the interview just in a bow tie. No shirt.
I mean, that probably favors Redick, who's in pretty good shape.
Well, we have talked about before. It feels like they're just trying to make Redick the guy. That's certainly one way.
You have to interview dressed as a Chippendales dancer does, in fact, favor JJ Redick. Because James Borrego is a skinny man. I'm not sure he is, the same sort of appeal.
They're all doing push-ups.
So why Sam Cassell has a pole that was just installed in his garage? What are you doing out there, honey? I'm getting ready for my Lakers interview.
Yeah.
All right, but the one piece that actually is interesting in that list is the AD thing, where you talk about the hire being tilted more towards Anthony Davis than LeBron. That actually is something that is somewhat notable.
Yeah, and by the way, it's sensible. I mean, it's interesting because like LeBron's voice in that locker room carries more weight than anybody else for reasons that require no explanation. But if you're thinking about a long-term fit and also just thinking about the way you want the team to be evolving anyway, with Anthony Davis taking that metaphorical torch, which I think we saw a lot of this season, then you do need to be thinking about this coach more in terms of how they fit with AD than LeBron as a priority, even if from, in some senses, small p politics, it may matter more with LeBron, and that makes it trickier. But from a practical and in certain ways obvious standpoint, it should matter more with Anthony Davis.
Yeah. And I think my initial instinct when I read that was like, there's probably not going to be a ton of daylight between those things anyway. They're not going to hire Redick if AD doesn't like him. That said, Redick will be seen much more as LeBron's guy because LeBron doesn't host a podcast with AD. He's just his teammate. So what would be fascinating is if like AD had a podcast with James Borrego and like those two, like, then who would they hire?
I've been very curious about the idea of if it's Redick, does that podcast continue?
Mm-hmm.
Like that, and I'm sure Redick is going to be asked that at the introductory press conference if he's hired.
Like, I don't think there's going to be a lot of conflict between those two.
I doubt it.
Visions, but it will be something to watch out for. Like, does AD have slightly different preferences? Is LeBron asking more in, when LeBron does his due diligence on the coach, and he will, and AD does his due diligence, and he will, is LeBron's emphasis on what are you going to do in our offense around Anthony Davis versus me or something like that. Are you scheming around AD or are you scheming around me? I think LeBron actually is probably can ask very similar questions to Davis. That's my thought.
I mean, in some respects, I think it might be a trick question. If the answer is I'm scheming more around you, LeBron might go, eh. I mean, like, for real, I've seen a lot of indications that LeBron is looking for Anthony Davis to be carrying more of that load than ever before. And he's LeBron, and he's still going to put his stamp on games. And, he is well aware he's still a pretty damn good player.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think LeBron is itching to be the sole guy anymore.
All right. Well, Andy, there's a new little birdie whispering in the ears of Lakers decision makers. I don't know if he's replacing the old little birdie, but they're just the Lakers getting advice from everywhere. We'll talk about it next.
Locked on Lakers is brought to you by Game Time. And several years ago, some friends of mine and I, we went to go see LL Cool J in LA at the now defunct House of Blues. It was a last minute decision. We didn't know how to get tickets. We went to a scalper. He sold us fake ones. And it was through some totally random, unrepeatable luck that we ended up getting into the show. But after that experience, I'm like, I'm not doing that again.
Nope.
And you don't have to, because Game Time. It's the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy shows, and theater near you. And with killer deals on last minute tickets and the best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets, start getting hyped for the fun. They've got flash deals so you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. The Game Time guarantee always means you get the best price. And if you find tickets in the same section or row for less, Game Time credits you 110% of the difference. It's the fastest growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. So snag the tickets without the stress using Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guarantee.
We get to this new voice that has been advising the Lakers on this process here in a second. I do want to Bronny James was one of the stars of the Combine on Monday in terms of the individual drills and some of the athletic drills and things. Apparently, his vertical was great. He hit a bunch of shots. It did really well. Tuesday, less impressive, I guess, in the scrimmage from what I've been seeing on social media. 4 points, 4 rebounds. So we'll see what happens, or it might have been 4 assists, but either way, a quiet day in the scrimmaging for Bronny, and we'll see what happens here. But the part I bring this up because Woj said something that got a lot of attention that I wonder if you think this will be a factor in Bronny getting drafted. Basically, the teams are interested in James, whether late in the first round, into the second round, or whatever it is, and would draft him specifically because they think he would be a big draw as he develops his game in the G League, that he would fill G League crowds, that he would sell a lot of tickets to G League team games and jerseys and merch and things like that. And that could be a reason that teams draft him.
I want to make it clear. I don't think it's enough of a reason that any team would use a first round pick on him.
That I agree with.
I think that's just bad asset management. Frankly, I don't think the Lakers would do that. And I don't think LeBron would want the Lakers to use the 17th pick on Bronny for a variety of reasons. As far as a second round pick, though, or just having him as part of your G League team broadly, I think it depends on how much is he going to play, because you have to remember too, the G League has become a real avenue for developing useful players in the NBA. So if you're really using your team as the farm system that it was designed to be, and frankly, for some teams, it becomes really important if you're a team that doesn't necessarily have access because of size and whatever to the best talent. You're not a free agent destination, whatever, or you've used up a lot of your draft picks. I don't think it is smart to manipulate your G League team to give Bronny James more minutes than he's really earned. That being said, though, if he's playing, yes, I do think that is something that is, I don't think you're going to fill 100,000 people to watch Bronny James, but do I think it could be more gate than would normally be there for a G League team? Absolutely.
More gate than might normally be there for a G League team, but not anything that's going to move the needle. I mean, I need to see this in action before. I think there might be an initial curiosity.
Sure.
It's worth noting, Bronny played a lot of games at USC, and it's not like they were selling that out, at the Galen Center. There were plenty of good seats available.
Well, I will say this as somebody who attended USC and is pretty familiar with USC basketball culture, it doesn't exist.
That's true.
So that's part of it. I mean, I went to school when Harold Miner, who was nicknamed Baby Jordan, was at USC, and Baby Jordan did not draw that huge of crowds, and he was nationally a pretty big deal.
I still think the reason teams would draft Bronny ultimately, unless he shows something like is as a prospect or something like that, is for the potential access. Again, small bump, sure. Some curiosity, sure. Is it really going to move the needle on anything from a revenue standpoint?
It depends on if
I think the answer is no.
I think it depends on, does he play a lot? Does he play well? I mean, look, if Bronny starts killing it in the G League, you could get people showing up to watch that because it'll get hyped and get turned into a big deal.
So the Lakers have historically leaned on Phil Jackson as their sage. He used to date Jeannie, and apparently the voice of Phil has been replaced by, or at least equalized by another, this again from the report from Shams and Jovan, by another legendary coach. This time it's Mike Krzyzewski, Andy.
Coach K. He, according to Shams and Woj, multiple sources briefed on the matter say one person who has become a respected unofficial source for the Lakers during this process is, like you said, Coach Mike Krzyzewski, whose deep knowledge for the candidates such as Redick and others. Editorial, very curious who the others are.
Well, let's say Redick seems to be holding up a lot of weight in that sentence.
Hold that thought. Provides a lens into the culture the organization wants and the characteristics of a potential staff around the next head coach. Krzyzewski's history with the Lakers goes back to 2004 when Dr. Jerry Buss made a strong yet unsuccessful offer to hire Coach K. That's back when Phil Jackson had been given his walking papers, and there was talk about possibly bringing in Coach K to coach Kobe. And Kobe had said famously that if he had gone to college, it would have been Duke. That obviously didn't work out. Look, if this is truly just about getting Coach K's perspective for like a blanketed coaching search, sure. All right. I mean, I would personally steer more towards somebody who's been more directly part of the NBA scene, but like he's obviously somebody who knows a lot about basketball, has gravitas, smart mind, blah, blah, blah. But what I would say is they need to make sure Coach K is a neutral resource and not somebody who's going to be steering them towards the player he has the deepest relationship with anyway. And to be clear, it is both legitimate and wise for them to ask Coach K about JJ Redick. That's a no-brainer. But you can do that without including him in a process that he's supposed to be without conflict of interest.
I'm not even sure he's the right guy to ask about JJ because Redick hasn't been in college for 20 years. I'm not saying he's a resource. Sure. I mean, Mike Krzyzewski is a resource and he's a good, if you want to talk about culture stuff, sure. And all that, I'm sure he would be in favor of a guy who tirelessly game plans and can be somebody the franchise can build around. I'm sure those are attributes that Mike Krzyzewski would lean into. But like in terms of a resource as to, JJ Redick as, an NBA player, as somebody since then, it was like, I'm not actually convinced he's the best one. Maybe there's,
he shouldn't be the only one. He should just be one.
I want to know, like with all these guys, like, who exactly are they talking to? Who exactly do the Lakers lean into? Because while Krzyzewski, it's like a big and shiny name, and like, look at that, we're talking to Coach K. Like we're really, look at the access that we have to insight.
We're widening our star effery.
What does that mean? Like you say, are you just talking again? If you're somebody like we did the show earlier in the week where I was like, if you were just looking at tea leaves based on how things are doing, this thing is being set up for JJ Redick to be named the next Lakers head coach. Looking again, depending on how you read the Coach K news, that just feeds into that idea that we are doing this as an exercise to eventually get, whether consciously or unconsciously, figuring out ways to put JJ Redick at the front of the line and make it at the very least his job to lose. But anyway, Coach K definitely was a grinder. There's no question about that. And yes, I said it that way to leave everyone with that image.
He wasn't a chair a lot.
Yeah. Locked On Lakers on YouTube is where you can go to see the show, hang out with over 24,000 now slightly disgusted viewers and subscribers
or
to the program. Or that's right.
And no judgment either way.
There's a lid for every pot. And we will be back continuing to follow all of this stuff with the offseason, the coaching search. See everyone tomorrow.